I want to thank you for clicking the link and coming over to the Simpson College Wrestling presentation on movement versus moment. We're going to be talking about the difference between a movement and a moment, and we're really going to be applying that to our personal movement here at Simpson called On the Rise. But I want you to be sure to understand and make no mistake about it. This is a choice. You know, it's impossible to start a movement when you have old ways of thinking. You know, when you think that my way's the right way or this way's the only way, there's no way that you can start a movement. And with that, it's impossible to join a movement when you have bad information. You know, in the world of athletics and especially in recruiting, there is so much bad information out there that it's almost impossible to cut through it in one meeting or one email or one communication. You know, for instance, there's a lot of kids that make choices based on money. You know, and we have absolute, unequivocal evidence that shows that making a decision strictly based on financial reasons generally doesn't work out very well. And that feeds into the fact that it is impossible to sustain a movement without sacrifice. Everybody that's involved in a movement in some way, shape, or form is going to be sacrificing something, whether it's time or whatever it may be. And we're going to talk about some of those in this presentation. And it's impossible to sacrifice without passion. There's no way that somebody's going to actually sacrifice time or energy or allow for public scrutiny if they're not passionate about what they're doing. And the great thing is that all of the coaches here at Simpson, we do not have any type of old thinking. We stay on the cutting edge to have the best information possible, and we're constantly sacrificing time, effort, energy, all the things that we should be. We could put into our families or going to movies or whatever. We sacrifice those things because we're so passionate about what we're doing here to help all of our athletes reach all their goals as they move forward, coming to Simpson, and then after they leave Simpson. So that's a choice we've made to build this movement. But we want to talk about the difference between a movement and a moment to try and help you with your choice on where you're going to go to college. So when we talk about a movement, this is a deep-seated internal passion that is always on your mind. And you know that people will benefit from whatever it is that you're looking ready, that you're trying to start, or that you're potentially going to join. Now, when you think about On the Rise and watching that On the Rise video and what we're trying to do for our athletes to come into this program, that's absolutely a movement. The difference is that a moment, it can be an important situation. And it can also offer a platform that you can learn something, but it only benefits the people that are there right then. Not down the road or anything else, but right then is the only time you're going to see a benefit. Now, when you are a leader or you join a movement, you're going to need significant amount of courage. Because you're probably going to have some ridiculers that are going to say, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? Because movements are generally not mainstream. You usually don't find a strong movement that everybody was on board with from the very beginning. You know, everybody thought cell phones were ridiculous. Nobody thought cars were going to be the thing of the future. But moments, they're usually built on mainstream thought and application. People are never really ridiculed for joining a moment, and because it's always common. And so, think about hooliganism. Everybody says, oh man, they shouldn't have done that at the soccer event. But they also say, but that's kind of what happens at soccer events. Even though it's a bad thing that happened in that moment, people disregard the fact that it was necessarily, the worst thing in the world because, well, they were just caught up in the moment. So it's something that's mainstream, and it's usually people understand it, and nobody's really going to get too upset about it, as opposed to a movement where they're like, what are you doing? Now, this is a really important piece of the puzzle because the first person to join a movement is clearly the most important, because when you start a movement, most of the time it's just you. And you say, man, I really want this to take off. So when that first person jumps on board, that's a huge deal, because if you get one, you can get two. Now, when you talk about a moment, the general public is often accepting of these moments as reasonable, and they get behind them and they support whatever the action is, or at least they don't denounce the action because they know it's going to come and go quickly, so they don't really care about it, which is extremely different than jumping on board in a movement. Now, the idea behind momentum, when you have a movement, it's you and you're talking to people and you're doing things, and pretty soon you get your first person to say, man, I love what you're doing. Let's keep this going. And then you got to find the second person, and then the third and the fourth and the fifth. And eventually you get, 6, 8, 10, 12 people, and that momentum is building and more people are joining and following, and it becomes more acceptable. But in the moment, it just pops up. It's there. It's pretty much accepted, and everybody does what that moment is calling for, and then pretty soon the energy fades away. And so that's incredibly different, and you see that a lot in athletics. That one team comes onto the scene that one year, and then the next year and the year after and the year after, they never repeat what they were able to do. And when you build things the right way, you're able to sustain that type of energy long term. Now, the reason for that is that in a movement, that energy is built from everybody's collective passions. As you have one passion, then you have two passions, then you have three, and then you have 10. And it's that collective amount of passion that absolutely keeps the energy up for a significant period of time. Now, when you think about a moment, here's the thing, is that moments are often derived from what we call anecdotally accepted morals and principles. Somebody says, this is what we should be doing. Somebody says, this is the right thing. And then all of a sudden they go, yeah, that is the right thing. And then boom, here's this moment happens, right? I'll tell you what, it happens all the time when we talk about recruiting. Somebody says, well, the only thing that matters is a big scholarship. Well, as soon as somebody says that, and that becomes the only thing you think about, then that's the only thing you look for, versus looking for that place where you fit and you're going to get a great college degree and you're going to wind up getting a great job. Think about this. If you choose to go to a college because you get, you're going to come out of college with $30,000 less in student loans, but in your first year of working, because the one college you would have got a $50,000 a year job, and the college you went to, you got a $30,000 a year job. In 2 years, you would have paid off that extra 30 grand, and you have a better job, you have better upward mobility. There's all sorts of things that are happening like that. So you got to be really careful about anecdotally accepting morals and principles and facts from people. And if you don't do that, then you can join movements much, much easier. And here's a big one. This is huge, is that it takes courage for you to join a movement, because you're joining something that you believe in, and it's usually not what others believe in. So a lot of times they're going to ridicule, they're going to say things. And the fact of the matter is, when you jump in on something in a moment, it takes zero courage to do that. Almost zero passion. You're just kind of following the crowd. You're doing what everybody else thinks is right anyway. And so other people jump in and do the thing, and then bam, they're off and running again. It's that mob mentality. But when you join a movement, you're putting your passion out there in the public eye for something you believe in, and that's really one of those things that drives you. So understand that you start your own movement. Even if you join one, you're still starting your own movement. You're saying, I'm in, I'm ready to go. And a moment's not yours. A moment is not what you can call your own. It's on its own time schedule. It's what somebody else started. You're just jumping in for that brief moment to catch a little bit of the glory. But when you jump in on a movement and you join that particular action, like for us, when we're talking to you about On the Rise, every single day of your life being at your best, making sure that you're working hard to be there for other people, for you, for your teammates, for your future. When you join a movement like that by coming to Simpson College, man, that stays with you forever. With the vision, attitude, lifestyle, culture of the On the Rise movement, imagine what you could actually accomplish over the course of your lifetime. But you got to jump in and you got to believe in what we're doing, as opposed to taking a look at some of these other things that are out there that are pushing you potentially in the direction of another program simply because of what somebody else says. So make sure you do your research. Make sure you understand what your passions are. And we wouldn't be talking to you right now if we didn't think that you had what it took to join our movement, to join our On the Rise movement. So thank you very much for spending the time to listen to us about the On the Rise movement and what it takes to be part of a movement. We're looking forward to talking with you soon. And remember, be 100% of the time.